Question: a fund is required by mandate to invest only in domestic equities. Explain, with reference to systematic and diversifiable risk, why the diversifiability classification is context-dependent. Critically evaluate how the fund can and cannot reduce risk, and discuss the limitations of diversifying away risk in interconnected global markets. 9 marks. Section 1. Interpretation and key points. Quick awareness check. Constraint defines risk. If you are banned from leaving the house, the weather is your systematic risk. If you can travel, weather is diversifiable by moving elsewhere. Domestic-only glass ceiling. You can fix bad company risk, unsystematic, but you can't fix bad country risk, systematic. Correlation convergence. In a global crash, diversification often fails because everything falls at once. The instrument loophole. Can we use derivatives to hedge what we cannot sell? Section 2. Logic breakdown. 1. Defining the terms, context dependency. Unsystematic, diversifiable, risk, unique to a company, e.g., a CEO scandal. Systematic, market risk, impacts the whole market, e.g., a national interest rate hike. The logic. For a global investor, the UK economy is a diversifiable risk. They can buy US stocks. For a domestic-only fund, the UK economy is systematic. They have no escape. 2. What the fund can do, it can eliminate idiosyncratic risk. By holding 500 domestic companies instead of 5, it ensures that one company's bankruptcy doesn't destroy the fund. 3. What the fund cannot do, it cannot escape the domestic beta. If the domestic currency collapses, or the local economy enters a recession, every stock in the fund will likely fall. 4. The role of risk transfer. The fund might use derivatives, like put options or swaps, to hedge. This is a technical solution to a mandate constraint, but it introduces basis risk. The hedge isn't perfect. 5. The global interconnection problem. Critically evaluate the myth of diversification. In a crisis, tail dependency spikes. Markets that normally move differently suddenly move together. This means the protection of diversification often vanishes exactly when you need it most. Section 3. High distinction model answer. The classification of risk as systematic or diversifiable is not an inherent property of the risk itself, but is entirely context-dependent based on the fund's investable universe. For a global investor, domestic country risk is diversifiable because it can be offset by international exposures. However, for a fund restricted by a domestic-only mandate, the local market index becomes the systematic factor. The fund is trapped within the domestic volatility structure. Any event impacting the national economy is a systematic risk that cannot be eliminated through traditional asset allocation. Within this constraint, the fund can effectively reduce unsystematic risk by diversifying across various domestic sectors and individual names. This internal diversification removes idiosyncratic volatility, such as company-specific fraud or management failure, ensuring the portfolio tracks the broad domestic market rather than a few volatile stocks. However, the fund cannot diversify away the domestic market risk. To mitigate this, management may look toward risk transfer instruments like derivatives or swaps. While these allow for exposure transformation without breaching the physical mandate, they introduce model risk and basis risk, where the hedge may not perfectly correlate with the underlying domestic equity movements. The limitations of diversification are most apparent in interconnected global markets. Modern finance is characterized by high tail dependency. During systemic shocks, international correlations tend to converge toward one. This contagion effect suggests that even if the mandate allowed for global diversification, the actual risk reduction might be lower than historical models predict. Professional actuarial judgment requires recognizing that diversification is a conditional benefit. A fund must monitor its concentration risk and remain skeptical of stable correlation assumptions, treating diversifiability as a fluid concept that changes during periods of economic stress.